Welcome back to Calm and Cozy Bedtime. Tonight I invite you to journey with me to a small, quaint coffee shop where the aroma of freshly brewed coffee mingles with the soft hum of quiet conversations. It's a story of kindness, connection, and unexpected joy, the perfect way to end your day. So, grab your favorite blanket, sink into your coziest chair, and let the warmth of this tale wash over you like a comforting cup of tea. Close your eyes, breathe deeply, and let's begin this heartwarming adventure together. The inviting aroma of freshly brewed coffee fills the air as golden rays of the morning sun cascade through the large windows of the daily grind. A charming little coffee shop tucked away on a quiet street corner. The shop is a haven for early risers, a place where time seems to pause, allowing patrons to savor life's little moments. The soft clinking of ceramic cups and the gentle hum of friendly chatter weave together into a comforting melody, offering a tranquil escape from the busy world outside. At the heart of it all is Emily, the shop's owner. With her warm brown eyes and an ever-present smile, Emily has a magical way of making everyone feel like they've found a second home. Her laughter, as bright as the sunshine streaming through the windows, is often heard as she engages in light-hearted banter with her customers. She knows most by name and remembers their favorite orders, a testament to her genuine care and attention to detail. The Daily Grind is more than just a coffee shop. It's a small community bound by shared moments of warmth, stories, and the perfect cup of coffee, all made special by Emily's touch. One crisp autumn afternoon, when the air was filled with the scent of fallen leaves and the promise of winter, the door to the Daily Grind swung open, ushering in a young woman named Sarah. Her hurried steps and furrowed brow instantly caught Emily's attention behind the counter. Sarah's usual cheerful demeanor was replaced by a look of worry, her hands fidgeting with her phone as she scanned the room, searching for something. "Is everything all right, Sarah?" Emily asked gently, her voice a comforting balm to the anxious young woman. Sarah sighed, her breath forming a faint cloud in the chilly air. "I think I lost my scarf," she admitted, her voice tinged with frustration. "It's not just any scarf. It was my grandmother's. She knitted it for me last Christmas, and I wear it every day. I must have dropped it somewhere between my apartment and here." Emily nodded, her expression softening with empathy. "Don't worry, dear," she said with her signature reassuring smile. "We'll find it." Without hesitation, Emily clapped her hands lightly, drawing the attention of the cafe's patrons. "Excuse me, everyone," she began, her voice carrying over the quiet hum of the shop. "Our friend Sarah here has misplaced a very special scarf. It's hand-knitted and quite sentimental. If you've seen it, please let us know." The usual soft murmur of conversation in the shop came to a halt. For a moment, the only sounds were the gentle clinking of spoons and the occasional sip of coffee. Then, as if by unspoken agreement, everyone began to look around, their eyes scanning the tables, chairs, and even the floor for any sign of the missing scarf. One customer, a middle-aged man in a navy peacoat, peered under his table and called out, "No scarf here. but I'll check outside." He grabbed his coffee and stepped out to look along the sidewalk. Another customer, a young woman with headphones around her neck, offered, "I'll check the coat rack." She set down her laptop and began rifling through the jackets hanging by the door. The sense of camaraderie was palpable. Strangers who might have otherwise exchanged only polite smiles now worked together, united by the common goal of finding Sarah's scarf. Even the barista, who had been busy steaming milk, paused to join the search. Minutes ticked by, and Sarah's face remained tense, though she was clearly moved by everyone's willingness to help. Just as hope seemed to wane, a small voice broke through the quiet. "Is this it?" All heads turned to see a little girl standing by a corner table. She was holding up a soft woolen scarf, its warm autumnal hues of burgundy and gold unmistakable. Her shy smile peeked out from beneath her messy curls. Sarah gasped and rushed over, her hands trembling as she took the scarf from the child. "Yes, this is it," she exclaimed, her voice thick with relief and gratitude. "Oh, thank you so much." The little girl, whose name was Lily, beamed as Sarah knelt down to her level and gave her a warm hug. "Thank you, Lily," Sarah said, her eyes glistening with tears. "You have no idea how much this means to me." Emily stepped forward, her smile brighter than ever. "Well, it seems our little detective here saved the day," she said, winking at Lily. "How about a cup of hot chocolate on the house, sweetheart?" Lily's eyes lit up as she nodded eagerly, and Emily disappeared behind the counter to prepare the special treat. As Sarah sat down at her usual table, the scarf now draped securely around her shoulders, she looked around the cafe. The sense of relief was matched only by a growing warmth in her chest. It wasn't just the scarf that comforted her, it was the kindness of the people around her. "I can't thank you all enough," Sarah said, her voice carrying across the room. "You didn't have to help, but you did. It means so much to me." The middle-aged man who had gone outside returned, a grin on his face as he reported, "No scarf out there, but looks like I missed the big discovery." The room filled with laughter, and for a moment, the small coffee shop felt like a family gathering. Emily returned with Lily's hot chocolate, complete with a swirl of whipped cream and a sprinkle of cinnamon. She placed it carefully in front of the girl, who giggled with delight. "Thank you, Miss Emily," Lily said, her face glowing with happiness. As the afternoon wore on, the cafe settled back into its usual rhythm, but the atmosphere felt different. There was an unspoken connection between everyone present, a shared memory of kindness that lingered like the scent of coffee in the air. For Sarah, the experience was more than just the relief of finding her scarf. It was a reminder that even in a big, bustling city, moments of warmth and community could still be found in the most unexpected places. Before leaving, she approached Emily once more. "Thank you, Emily," she said earnestly. "You've created something really special here." Emily waved her off modestly. "It's not just me, Sarah. It's all of us. This place is what it is because of the people in it." With a final smile, Sarah wrapped her scarf securely around her neck and stepped out into the crisp autumn air, her heart lighter than it had been all day. Inside the daily grind, the clinking of cups resumed, the soft hum of conversations filled the space again, and life went on. Yet for everyone who had been there that afternoon, the memory of the lost scarf was a small but powerful reminder of the beauty of connection, even among strangers. Later that same day, as the golden afternoon light poured into the daily grind, the familiar chime of the door announced the arrival of Mr. Johnson. He was a beloved regular at the cafe, known for his infectious laughter, his kind-hearted conversations, and the way he often carried his worn acoustic guitar slung over his shoulder. But today, something was different. His shoulders drooped, his gait was slow, and the twinkle that usually lit up his eyes was nowhere to be found. Emily noticed immediately. As he approached the counter, she greeted him with her usual warmth, but couldn't ignore the sadness etched across his face. "Mr. Johnson, is everything all right?" she asked gently, leaning in with concern. He sighed deeply, his hands trembling slightly as he set his guitar case on the floor. "It's my wife," he began, his voice low and strained. She passed away last week." The words hung in the air, heavy and raw. Emily's heart clenched. She remembered his wife well, a lively, kind woman who often accompanied him to the cafe, her eyes sparkling as she listened to him play his guitar. "I'm so sorry," Emily whispered, placing a comforting hand on his arm. "She was such a wonderful woman." Mr. Johnson nodded, his gaze fixed on the counter. "She was my everything. We used to sit in the evenings, and I'd play for her. She loved my music, said it was the sound of her heart." His voice cracked, and he paused to steady himself. "Now the house feels so quiet, so empty." Emily, her own eyes brimming with sympathy, reached for a cup and began preparing his usual chamomile tea. "You're not alone, Mr. Johnson," she said softly. "We're here for you." As she handed him the steaming mug, an idea began to form in her mind. "Why don't you play for us today?" she suggested with a smile. "Your music has always brought so much joy to everyone here. Maybe it will bring you some peace too." Mr. Johnson hesitated, his fingers brushing the worn leather of his guitar case. "I don't know, Emily," he murmured. "I haven't played since she left." "Then today could be the perfect day to start again," Emily encouraged. "Music has a way of healing, doesn't it?" After a long pause, Mr. Johnson nodded. Slowly, he unlatched the case and pulled out his guitar. The instrument was as familiar to him as his own hands, its polished wood gleaming faintly in the soft light of the cafe. He adjusted the strings, took a deep breath, and settled onto one of the chairs near the counter. The quiet hum of the cafe came to a standstill as customers noticed what was happening. Curious eyes turned toward Mr. Johnson, their chatter fading into an expectant hush. He strummed the first chord tentatively, the sound trembling but pure. Gradually, his fingers found their rhythm, weaving a melody that was both haunting and beautiful. The song spoke of loss, of love, of moments shared and moments missed. It was a melody that seemed to carry his heartache and pour it into the room, touching everyone who listened. Some customers wiped away silent tears, moved by the raw emotion in his music. Others closed their eyes, letting the notes stir memories of their own loved ones. A young couple held hands across their table, while an older woman placed a tissue to her cheek, her expression soft with nostalgia. Emily stood behind the counter, her hands clasped to her chest. She watched as the music seemed to transform Mr. Johnson. With each note, his hunched shoulders relaxed, and his face softened, as if the weight of his grief was momentarily lifted. When the final note faded into the air, there was a moment of profound silence. Then, as if on cue, the cafe erupted into applause. The sound was thunderous and heartfelt, a wave of appreciation and support that seemed to envelop Mr. Johnson like a warm embrace. David had been a regular at the cafe for weeks now, his eyes often drawn to a woman who sat by the window, her auburn hair catching the sunlight like strands of fire. She always seemed lost in the pages of a book, her expression shifting between quiet focus and the faintest hints of a smile. To David, she was a vision of elegance and intellect, someone he couldn't help but admire from afar. Today, however, he had decided to do something about it. Clutched in his trembling hand was a neatly folded letter. His heart poured into every carefully chosen word. It wasn't just a letter, it was his courage, his hope, his longing. But now, as he stood just steps from the door, his confidence wavered. What if she thought he was foolish? What if she didn't feel the same? Inside the cafe, Emily noticed him through the window. She had seen David before, always glancing toward the woman by the window, but never approaching her. She recognized the look on his face, a mixture of determination and fear. With her practiced intuition, Emily decided to step in. As David finally entered the cafe, Emily greeted him with her usual warmth. "David, you look like a man on a mission," she said, her tone light but encouraging. He hesitated, his eyes darting to the woman, who was once again immersed in her book. I wrote her a letter," he confessed, holding up the slightly crumpled paper. "But now I don't know if I can go through with it." Emily smiled knowingly. "The worst that can happen is she says no," she said gently. "But you'll never know unless you try. And who knows, she might surprise you." Her words seemed to steady him. Taking a deep breath, David squared his shoulders and made his way to the woman's table. His steps felt heavier with every inch he closed between them, but he reminded himself why he was doing this. "Excuse me," he said softly, his voice trembling as he stood before her. The woman looked up, her green eyes meeting his. David felt his heart leap into his throat. She was even more beautiful up close. My name is David," he began, his cheeks flushing. "I see you here often, and I've admired you from afar. I know this might seem strange, but I wrote you something." He extended the letter toward her, his hand shaking slightly. The woman, surprised but curious, took the letter with a kind smile. "I'm Olivia," she said, her voice warm and soothing. "Thank you. May I read it?" David nodded, unable to speak, as Olivia unfolded the paper. The cafe seemed to fade around him as she began to read, her expression shifting from curiosity to something softer, something unspoken. He looked up, his eyes glistening with tears, but carrying a hint of something new. Gratitude, perhaps, or a glimmer of hope. "Thank you," he said, his voice shaky but sincere. "Thank you all. I didn't realize how much I needed this." A young woman approached him with a smile. "That was beautiful, Mr. Johnson," she said. "Your music, it touched all of us." Another customer, a man in his 30s, added, "You reminded me of my dad. He used to play for my mom and me when I was a kid. Thank you for that memory." One by one, others came up to express their thanks, sharing stories of their own losses and the ways music had helped them heal. The room felt alive with connection, each person's grief and joy intertwining in a way that was both comforting and cathartic. Emily handed Mr. Johnson another cup of chamomile tea, this one on the house. "You have a gift, Mr. Johnson," she said warmly. "Your music doesn't just heal you, it heals everyone who hears it." Mr. Johnson smiled, a genuine smile that reached his eyes for the first time that day. "You're right, Emily," he said softly. "Playing today, it reminded me of her, but it also reminded me that I'm not alone. Thank you for encouraging me." As the evening approached and the light outside turned a soft shade of amber, Mr. Johnson packed up his guitar. But before leaving, he turned to Emily. "Would you mind if I came back tomorrow? Maybe played another song?" Emily's face lit up. "We'd love that, Mr. Johnson. Anytime." From that day on, Mr. Johnson's music became a regular feature at the daily grind. Each afternoon, he would take out his guitar and fill the cafe with melodies that spoke to the soul. His grief didn't vanish, but it became lighter, woven into the notes he played and the connections he made with others. For the customers, his music was a gift, a reminder of life's bittersweet beauty and the ways we can find comfort in one another. For Mr. Johnson, it was a bridge back to the world, a way to keep his wife's memory alive while finding his own path forward. And for Emily, it was yet another example of the magic that could happen in her little coffee shop, a place where strangers became friends and heartache found solace in the simplest of acts, a song, a cup of tea, and a shared moment of humanity. As the door chimed behind him that evening, Emily watched him walk away, his steps lighter and his guitar case swinging at his side. The daily grind had once again lived up to its name, grinding down life's sharp edges into something smoother, softer, and undeniably beautiful. As the amber hues of the setting sun gave way to the soft glow of twilight, the daily grind became a cozy retreat from the bustling streets outside. Inside, the usual symphony of clinking cups and quiet chatter filled the air, but just beyond the cafe's window, a young man named David paced nervously. His footsteps echoed faintly against the sidewalk as he wrestled with his thoughts. The letter was simple yet heartfelt. In it, David shared how her quiet presence had brightened his days, how he admired her grace and wished to know her beyond fleeting glances. It was honest and vulnerable, a rare moment of courage laid bare. When Olivia finished, she looked up at him with a smile that made his chest tighten, but not with fear this time. "This is lovely," she said. I have to admit, I've noticed you too. I was curious about you, but I didn't know how to start a conversation. David's heart soared. Relief and joy coursed through him as he let out a small, disbelieving laugh. Really? Olivia nodded. Really? Encouraged by her response, David pulled out the chair across from her, and Olivia gestured for him to sit. They began talking, the words flowing naturally, as if they had known each other for years. David learned that Olivia was an artist, often sketching in her notebook during her cafe visits when she wasn't lost in her books. She, in turn, discovered that David was a writer, spending his mornings crafting short stories and poetry. Their shared love for creativity became an instant bridge, connecting them in ways neither had expected. As the evening wore on, the cafe began to empty, but neither of them noticed. They were lost in their conversation, laughing, sharing stories, and discovering small but significant details about each other. Emily, watching from the counter, couldn't help but smile. There was something magical about moments like this, where her little coffee shop became the backdrop for connections that felt almost destined. When the time came for the cafe to close, David and Olivia finally realized how much time had passed. The sun had long since set, and the moon cast a soft silver glow over the city. "Would you like to walk with me?" Olivia asked as she gathered her things. David nodded eagerly. "I'd like that very much." As they left the daily grind hand in hand, Emily gave them a wave, her heart warm with happiness. A new love story had been born within the walls of her cafe. A story that began with a heartfelt letter and the courage to take a chance. The following weeks saw David and Olivia return to the daily grind together. They would sit at the same table by the window, David with his notebook and Olivia with her sketch pad. Their laughter filled the air, and their blossoming relationship became a favorite topic among the regulars who had witnessed their first encounter. For David, the experience was a lesson in bravery, in stepping out of his comfort zone and risking vulnerability for something that mattered. For Olivia, it was a reminder that sometimes love finds you when you least expect it. And for Emily, it was yet another affirmation of why she loved her little coffee shop. It wasn't just a place for coffee and conversation. It was a space where lives intertwined, where stories unfolded, and where even the simplest gestures, like a letter, could change everything. As the days turned into weeks, the table by the window became known as David and Olivia's spot. A small but meaningful piece of the daily grind's ever-growing tapestry of memories. And every time Emily saw them walk through the door, their smiles lighting up the room, she was reminded of the magic that came from taking a chance on love. As the night deepened and the city lights sparkled against the inky sky, the daily grind turned off its warm glow, closing its doors for the day. Inside, echoes of laughter, heartfelt moments, and newfound connections lingered in the quiet. It was more than just a coffee shop. It was a place where kindness thrived, worries dissolved, and love unfolded. As you close your eyes tonight, let the warmth of these stories wrap around you like a comforting blanket. carrying you into dreams filled with hope and serenity. If these stories from the daily grind brought a smile to your face, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share for more calming bedtime tales. Let's spread the warmth and love, one story at a time. Sweet dreams, and see you next time.